Hi. Thank you. Actually, it wasn't me that said that. I would never dare to say such thing. And I think actually that's the sole reason why I'm invited here today. That we just got a shit ton of press lately, and people have been talking about Amen. And of course, if you do a conference, you know, you want people that draw a crowd, and that like to listen. In my case, I'm not sure why I'm the right person there. Amen is just open since yesterday. It's not even. We don't even know what's going to happen. The jury is still out. I mean, this thing could still completely crash and burn. Probably will. We heard this morning 7 out of 10. So. Also, I've never built a company that made any money, so I'm not sure why I'm here today. But to give, of course, the great organizers some credit, I think that maybe it's because it's not the first company I built, and my co-founder Florian Weber, he also built a company before called Twitter, and it wasn't him alone, of course, but he was the guy who actually built it. I did a company called Places, which was sold to Nokia in 2008, and I made a ton of mistakes. And also Florian, he saw Audio, which was the company before Twitter, fail. And when we first started, we said to ourselves, this time we're gonna do a lot of things differently. There's a lot of things we've learned the hard way. We don't want to make these mistakes again. What I'm about to tell you is I think it's actually quite a good continuation from Morten this morning. Of course, not that entertaining, and I know it's after lunch, but it's getting a little bit further into the detail of how we're actually doing it and the kind of things that we said, we did wrong at Places, for example, and that we want to do a little bit differently this time around. So maybe it's a good continuation in terms of stuff that you can actually maybe take away. I know we don't have time afterwards for questions, but I'll be around, so I'm happy to talk about more concrete things with each of you, and just come find me, basically. So this is not the authoritative guide for running a startup. This is just my personal account. But I wouldn't be an entrepreneur if I wouldn't use the chance of having a full audience to give a little demo of Amen. Also, I think it's important to understand what kind of company it is we're running. So, it's a consumer internet company. It's one of these things that is a big gamble, where you do have to take the whole market. It's nothing where you can just turn a little bit of monetization on and then grow and have a couple of customers. It's not a B2B product. It's really something that either it works or it doesn't. So you have to understand Amen a little bit to see where I'm coming from, to understand my points that I'm trying to make. So Amen is all about strong opinions. So you can go ahead and say, for example, Pippi Longstocking is the best childhood hero ever, and then other people would pitch in and say who they think is their childhood hero, whether it's Superman or Captain Future. I think my personal one was Captain Future, and so it's a real-time opinion platform, if you want. So the unique thing about Amen is that you have to post your opinion in a certain format. You say something is the best or is the worst, and then the description of what it is, and then you have some kind of scope, ever or in Vienna or of all times. So the interesting thing is the best, where it says the best, you can only toggle it between best and worst. There's nothing in between. There's no funniest, no tastiest. There's no gray. It's only black and white. So also on the iPhone, this would be the same interface as it looks like on the iPhone. So here, somebody says Yoda is the best teacher in the universe, and that ends up in a feed of opinions. So I'm following a bunch of people, like I'm following people on Twitter. I can follow the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, and I see what they're saying. They're saying things like Startup Week is the best week ever, or they're saying, das ist kein Adventskalender, Sie dürfen ruhig alle Türen benutzen, is the best U-Bahn-Ansage ever. I mean, a lot of it is just fun and games, but you see also where the value actually comes out of it. So basically, it's people posting opinions. There's other services where people post pictures. In our service, you post opinions. Same thing again on the iPhone. So here it's a little bit easier, for example, to talk about places. So if I choose I want to talk about a place and create an opinion about a place, it already pulls out a couple of places nearby, like the Industriellen Vereinigung, and I can say Industriellen Vereinigung is the best place for networking, for example. So then every single opinion gets its own, like every tweet or every picture on Flickr or every video on YouTube gets its perma URL, it has its own home on the web. So this guy said tequila is the best drink when you feel like partying, and then you have two choices. Again, black and white. You say amen, which is like, I agree. But in our case, of course, we know what has been said. So it's not just an interaction like a thumbs up. It's actually a vote on tequila, right? Because someone else might say, hell no, it's not tequila, it's vodka actually. And what you see here is, we work with structured data. So you don't just type vodka, you type vodka, but then we do a search and we say, do you mean the drink vodka? So basically, in the end, we get a huge repository of structured data where you can click on vodka and you can see everything that's been said about it. The best party drink, the best thing together with orange juice, the worst headache. I mean, it's like almost like you turn in the back of a book, you see all the quotes, what's been said about a book. And the other way around, I can also click on the best drink when you feel like partying, and I get a whole list of drinks, right? So this is then exactly what happens, because we have all these black and white opinions, we can put them on top of each other, and it becomes more differentiated and more gray. It's like a mosaic, right? You can only, like the individual stone in a mosaic, mosaic, whatever, you know what I mean, mosaic. It can only be green or blue, but when you step away, it actually gives a very detailed and almost photographic picture. There's been really fun things that have been discussed, like the best thing to bring to a knife fight. And of course, now a lot of people would say, like, what the hell, seriously? I mean, what's the point? How are you ever going to make money? Da, 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 da. So I think, and this is the first lesson, is really stuff has to be fun. I mean, if it's not fun, if we told people, why don't you join us in our rating portal where you can rate this and rate that, then people would be like, oh come on, why would I? You were the 20th service like that, and why would I give you my time and invest my time to make your startup work, right? If you can give somebody something useful or something funny, something that is entertaining, something that is worth checking when he's on the bus or on the toilet, then it's really hard to get people to be engaged. The thing is, what we see happening is, in the end, like this is something I just posted yesterday. I posted where is the best place for schnitzel in Vienna, and instantly people reacted, and maybe only 10 or 5% of these lists are useful, but already now with the 20,000 beta users, we're seeing such an amazing amount of activity because it's really fun to just say amen or hell no, that maybe 5 or 10% of the lists are actually really, really useful. And that's the whole point. You get engagement, you get a lot of traffic into the service, and then the stuff that falls out of it because of the structured nature is extremely useful. And later on, of course, we will expose this in different ways, where you can search for the best schnitzel in Vienna, where we visualize data and interesting things. That's all not there yet, but the important thing is build something that is fun and engaging, even though it's maybe small and simple, and not everyone can see where it's going, but not everyone has to. If you see it yourself, that's enough, as long as the people are using it and enjoying it. Best place for sushi in San Francisco, or this was something that I think is really, really cool. We are probably the only service where people write our own backlog, right? So some people have been, because there's no comments and a very rigid structure to express yourself, people have been using that structure to tell us things. So instead of sending us a support email, they say, search is the best feature Eamon could introduce. And then someone else says, hell no. Entry duplication prevention is the best one can introduce. And of course, the Android guys are shipping in and saying, no, where's the Android client, and so on. So this was, when we saw this, we knew it works. Okay, this was a small detour. but I think, again, it's important you understand where I'm coming from. And we're open now, so there's no leave your email anymore. The app's not in the App Store yet, so that's coming in the next couple of days. But on getamen.com, you can just use the web version of the service. So when we started in May, what did we want to do differently? I was at Nokia for 2 years when my last company got bought. You know how it is. You have to, stay with the company that bought you for a while. And of course, you start thinking, what's the next thing I want to do? Is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? PowerPoint. I was really urging to build a product again, something that you can verify fast. Something is nothing more rewarding and better that if you release something and you see the first people you don't know come on the service, or even the people you do know use it, and next time you see them, you see your app on the home screen. It's just really rewarding. So I was thinking, how can I do this? How do I go about it? And especially, what people do I want to do it with? And then I found 2 great people, Florian Weber, who was back in Germany at that time, and Caitlin Winner. With both of them, I worked on a project at Nokia, and it was one of the coolest projects I did in that time, where it wasn't about, basically we were in almost like an internal stealth mode, so we just kind of didn't tell anybody about it and started working on this really cool map project. And when you start working with people, you realize, okay, those guys are great, it works. And there wasn't many more people than just the 2 of them, one other guy, that we said, let's start this. And Caitlin is the designer, Florian is the programmer, I'm the talker, but it was enough of a team to get to first base. And what I mean by first base is something that I can show to my friend, and he says, okay, can I use this? Yeah, you can use it. You can try it out. And I can, ask him again in a week, are you still using it? Is it still fun? So, if you need to, like in 1999, raise €1 million to go to an agency to have them build your product, you're already fucked. Forget it. It's not going to work. You need a team that is completely self-sufficient and complementary to build the first product that you can actually verify. While you're at it, you shouldn't build a small product, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, you invest 3, 4, 5 years into your product to work. So why would you build something small or something that in the end, doesn't produce a lot of value? I think it was Fred Wilson. I know it was Fred Wilson who said, "Don't be anybody's bitch." And what he meant by it is, if you build on somebody else's ecosystem, on someone else's infrastructure, you might be able to grow really fast. But in the end, they can already fuck you, right? I mean, that's exactly what happened with the whole Twitter ecosystem. They basically said, hey guys, we have this great API, we're growing really fast, why don't you start building clients for us? It was their growth strategy. And then when the people have built clients, and some of them had high traffic clients with a lot of eyeballs, they said, we kind of changed our mind. We want to take our clients back, and we don't really want you to build clients anymore. And what's behind this is, as a startup, you need one social object that you own. It's actually a pretty simple concept. Flickr owns pictures, YouTube owns videos, SoundCloud is going for sounds. So we say we go for opinions, for example, right? It's a new social object that isn't there yet as a small definable thing. Right now it's a big chunk of text in like Yelp reviews or something, and we go for that social object. If you don't have that social object, it's really hard to generate lasting value. And you might still fail, but if you do succeed, if you execute well, at least you create value. Because in the other case, you execute well, and you're doing pretty okay, and then you realize you've built nothing that you actually own, and that is a monetizable object. So you do want to go for sort of the big new market. You want to go for the disruption, Because why would you invest 4 years to be the second or third best in the market by just copying someone else? It's just time not well spent. Also, if you have that big vision, it makes it much easier for you to basically make small decisions during the day. Every day you make small decisions. If you know your big plan, it makes it much easier. So it doesn't mean you can't have what some people call a wedge, right? So a wedge is like the small thing that you hammer in to crack something open. You don't have to, a big vision doesn't mean a big, large product, right? It could be something really small that you start with. So at Amen also, a lot of people say like, what's the point? Isn't that a little too small? Isn't there more coming? Well, yeah, you can be damn sure there is, but we start with something that is easy and small to start with and that people get and that is fun to use, and then we'll add more later. Probably the most important rule is you have to stop lying to yourself, right? It's the best thing that you can start doing right now. It's very easy to be in this like sort of have-that position where it doesn't completely fail and you have more people coming in. And it's kind of where we were at with places. In the beginning it was going well, we got a lot of PR, 10, 20, 30, 100,000 users. And then it was kind of like, and we always thought, hey, the next feature is going to fix it, or maybe the next article. Then we'll hit a tipping point, right? If there's another 10,000 users, then we'll have the tipping point and virality will start. Well, here's the news, it won't. You know already in your gut that it doesn't work. So the earlier you stop lying to yourself and start really making radical changes, if the core of the product is not healthy, the better. And what's really important here is that you have one or two things that you really watch, like 1 or 2 KPIs, and it's not the overall number of users. So, for example, what Florian told me at Twitter, in the beginning, they lost over 90% of the people that originally signed up. So only 1 out of 10 persons in the beginning, in the first 1 or 2 years, actually stuck with the service. Interestingly, even a super fast growing service like Instagram, they told me the same thing. They're like, man, it's only about 20% or 30%, don't name me on the numbers. But I was surprised, it's very fast growing. So I was like, well, why don't you ask Florian, I was like, why didn't you guys do anything about the conversion? You could have grown so much faster if you just put a video there, or something that people get it, and that not only 1 out of 10 users sticks, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And what both Instagram and Twitter said was, it doesn't really matter how many people stick in the beginning. You can tweak that later, and Twitter now did. It's really important who of the people that starts using your product comes back after 4 weeks and comes back after 8 weeks, for example. That famous retention. And that's really important. If you might be on a slower growth curve, but as long as you have people that come back and that stay infectious for your service and that invite others, eventually you'll hit the hockey stick, right? But it can take time. I mean, a company like SoundCloud, they were in private, they didn't even let people in for 12 months. They were in private beta for 12 or 18 months, I think. And they had, a couple of 10,000 users after those 18 months. Now they're adding 1 million users a month, right? It's because they're really concentrated on their core users. But those people have to be happy. If those people don't come back and they tell you, I got bored of it, then all your alarm bells should go on and you really need to change something. It's not about having the big end user numbers at the end of the first year. That's not the point. So what if it doesn't work? Lately there's been this hype word, pivoting, right? So yeah, just pivot, dude, or we just pivoted. It's of course you need to make radical changes, and that's what's meant by pivoting, right? But also, from my experience with places, at some point we did stop lying to ourselves and we got fucking depressed and we said, shit, we gotta do something else here. So we introduced a news feed. And And then we were like, yeah, maybe that's not enough. Maybe we will need to be more about where people will be in the future, because it was like for people that don't know what Places was, it was like a check-in service, right? So maybe it's not about where they are, maybe it's about where they will be. And we introduced all these things, and what happened was, we lost the people that liked the original Places, but we also didn't win any new ones, because they said, well, yeah, but I didn't understand it in the first time around, so now they're doing what? Real time? What? Future check-in? What? So basically, we got the worst of both worlds. And what I don't know who said it, but I heard it in some meeting at Nokia at some point. It takes $1 billion to build a global brand, right? Of course, as an entrepreneur, you don't have $1 billion, so you run around at conferences and you try to talk to everybody about your service. You spend a lot of time and energy promoting your brand and getting into people's head in 60 seconds, like, oh, this is what the service is, I get it. Or I don't get it, but at least I've heard that they're about workflow management, they're about whatever. And changing that is extremely hard. So if you have a good team, if you have some money left, and if you feel like you need to do something radically different, why do you make it so hard on yourself? Just give yourself a fresh start, meaning a new name, a totally new approach, a new service. Why not? You have the office, you have the people, and that's something that I think was actually pioneered by Twitter. When they saw that audio didn't work, they didn't just built Twitter and kept calling it audio. No, they really spun it out, right? And there's a couple of great examples of that lately. I mean, Instagram was, I don't know what they were called before, Bourbon. Turntable FM was Sticky Bits. And it was all a little bit bigger things. They had some traction, didn't work out too well. But then they had this great idea while they were at it and said, okay, let's give it a fresh start. So if you feel it doesn't work, if you feel like you need to make a radical pivot, radical change, start from scratch. Don't just start, calling yourself the same thing, but actually doing something else. Now, let's say you're at the point where you feel it works, right? You tested it with 4 people, yourself, your team, and you're kind of like, okay, I actually like this. It's actually fun to use. You give it to 20 people, some of your best friends, and let me tell you, they will not use something just because they're your friends. They'll try it out for a while, but then they write you a polite email saying, oh yeah, I really like the design, and I really like this aspect of the product, I really like that aspect of the product. But if you don't see them use it, next time you meet them, and if they don't have it on their phone, or in their bookmarks bar, then it means it probably doesn't work. But let's assume all that works, and you gave it to 200 people, to 2,000 people, and you still think you're on the right track. Then, and only then, it might be the time to raise money, to get an actual office, and to turn this thing into a company. Don't do it before, right? Make sure that you validated it before, because once you raise money and once you have these people sitting there, your board, they want the monthly reports and they want to see how well you grow and all this stuff, it's hard to tweak things. So you tweak before, and then you're right. And when you're right, then you're on a roll. Then you feel like I have something here. It's not a bunch of slides where you go to investors and say, I think I have an idea that could work. Why don't you give me some money? Because even if you're a really good salesperson and someone believes you and someone does give you money, you know that you can't be sure that it actually works. You're much surer of yourself once you have a working, a product that proves your value proposition, and then you turn the thing around. Then you are the guy that they want to invest in. Then all of a sudden, investors will come to you and say like, "Oh, I hear this product, and I've seen it on someone's phone. Did you raise money yet?" And that's the whole point. Don't even do PowerPoints. It's a rule that's really hard to stick by. But if you don't do PowerPoints, then you're forced to have something impressive on the phone. Just give it to somebody. If he will start using it, and if he will become addicted to it, and if he sees 2, 3, 4, 5 people in his immediate environment using it, or he likes it, whether it's a journalist or whether it's an investor, anybody that you want something from, it's the much more healthy and more sustainable way. Otherwise, you're just going to put a lot of energy in some lame write-up that you eventually end up with. So try to be on a roll. Try to be the steamroller that they feel like, oh, there's this train and it's going really fast. It's really hard to stop. The only thing I can do, I can jump on that train. And then you're basically in interesting territory. Also, what I've seen happening with a couple of friends is spending a lot of time fundraising in the beginning, and basically having at this point it gets really obsessive. Like, we need this money, otherwise we can't start. Well, then abort mission. It's a very disruptive process. If the 3 people that should be building the product are running around pitching, then you're not getting anywhere. Then it's better to not talk to anybody, build your product, heads down, go forward, and then basically just when you have a feeling, when the first investor starts asking you, then you might be at a point where it's time to go out. Because we're pretty, both companies I did were very sort of international oriented. We have no German language version. It wasn't supposed to be a company that just gets bought by someone from the US. We really want to build something big. And so people ask me, like, why don't you do it in the Valley? And, seriously, you want to do it where you can go as fast as possible. I don't know that many people there. I know it's very expensive. Yes, we go there a lot, but it really doesn't make any sense for us. If you're from New York, start your company in New York. If you're from Berlin, start it in Berlin. If you're from Vienna, start it in Vienna. Because here, you'll be able to find the 2 people that you can just start hacking with, right? And if you go somewhere else, it's noisy. No one knows you. You need a shit ton of money to even get started. Why would you want to go through that disruption? You can always do this later. If things go really, really well and you're the next Facebook, well then I guarantee you it's not going to be a problem to move wherever is the best place to be for your company. But in the beginning, the best place is where you are connected and where you are comfortable. Morten said something really right this morning. If you're an entrepreneur, and the trash, you come in the morning in the office, the trash isn't taken out. Well, it's your fault. And that's very true. It's something you have to start learning when you first build a company, is that you tend, if things don't go so well, for example, you tend to, there's just a human mechanism of blaming it on something else, Yeah, I know it's kind of my fault, but also, this one guy, he's really not doing his job, and the product team, they should do this. And in the end of the day, even if it's true, even if there's certain people that are disruptive or not, performing too well, or there's some outside, factors, like the market is crashing or whatever, that might all be true, but it's on you to react, right? You can change everything. You can just, you can make any call. You can say, we're not doing this product anymore, we're doing something else. You can say, this doesn't work out, you're fired. It's up to you. It's completely up to you. So it means that you need to be the one who starts reacting fast and decisively all the time. And that mostly applies to people. I was really at this point when at places we did some bad hirings, right? We thought that, of course, everyone knows hire the best people, hire the superstars. Everyone knows that, and everyone will tell you that. But what nobody told me is, if you hire somebody who's not as good as the best person in your team, he's not only half as efficient. On the contrary, he's a poison pill. He brings the whole team down, right? If you have 2, 3 really good people and you hire somebody who's not as good, or somebody who culturally isn't fitting, it ruins the whole thing. Because then, the really good guys, they feel like they have to cover up for somebody, who's really not good for the company, and you kind of think like, I can't fire this guy, you have a feeling like, I should really fire him, this wasn't a good decision, but then you think like, if I fire him, then maybe the other team members, they will think that, we're creating this atmosphere of pressure and fear, so I don't really want to fire him. And then when you do it, everyone's like, dude, why didn't you do this 2 months ago? Seriously. And so, really be fast. As soon as this gut feeling starts coming up and you feel like, this isn't working out, act now. Because, whether it's in business or in a relationship, if it starts complicated, it's not going to get less complicated by itself. Entropy. It's always going to get more complicated. So as soon as you start realizing something, act on it right away. My last point is, be different, right? I mean, why do you want to call your service Google, Doodle, Boodle, whatever, and give it, a little nice blue bird or red bird? And I never understood why all these companies have to look the same. I mean, it's a very competitive market. Why don't you stand out? It's not that hard. I mean, it's a little bit around, also just having an opinion, having a voice. I wouldn't go as far as saying you need to start a movement, but there are some companies that did this well. Like a phone, for example. I was never a big fan of the business model, but I was a really big fan of how they did it. Right? It's just you are like a person. So why would you want to be like anybody else? Also, I mean, just a very practical thing. These days, with apps, with social distribution. Through Facebook and Twitter, the name matters, the domain matters much less. The name does matter. So it shouldn't be a criteria, can I get the domain? If you get really successful, you can buy it later for 20 million. If it's not that successful, well then, you don't need to buy it at all. But why not do yourself a favor and start with a name that's different and sort of a whole identity. Have a good design, I mean, we're Europeans, we don't have to look like these ugly American websites. So why don't you just be a little bit different? But most important, I think, just starting your own company is the best idea ever. I never regretted it. I was in an agency, and I realized that I could never build something where I could get validation of my idea. That's the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur. Yes, it's 100% your fault if things go wrong, but it's also you. It's your idea. It's your baby. If it eventually makes it, or you sell it, or if people start like that. Thank you.